Don't think about too much, but just go and try it out. Sometimes a bad idea can be more successful than good idea because the person who thinks about the good idea, then they are looking for perfection and they never actually start making it. But sometimes if you start with a bad idea, but you work on it and you enjoy it, it can turn out to be a great product.
On this episode of Establishing Your Empire, I host Ivan Kutskir. Ivan is the creator of Photopea, which is a free online tool for editing graphics, photos, illustrations, PDFs, and much more. The coolest part of this advanced image editor is it simply runs in your browser, so there's nothing to install and it just works. His program was used 120 million times in 2020, and people spend over 45,000 hours in Photopea every single day. Ivan was born in the Ukraine but now lives in the Czech Republic, and during his first 4 years of development, his friends and family did not even know about Photopea. He spent a lot of time building it without making any money, but the project was fun and Ivan enjoyed working on it. Now, millions around the world use Photopea as their creative medium, and it has been fully translated into 38 languages. To this day, Ivan still works on Photopea by himself from the same apartment in Prague on the same $500 laptop. You're listening to the Establishing Your Empire show, a podcast that inspires entrepreneurs, creatives, and future business owners to pursue their passions, grow their organizations, and build their empire. My name is Daran Herrman, and creatively, I'm best known for my photography. But business-wise, my claim to fame is growing a company from $15K per month in online sales to breaking the $1 million a month barrier. And I'm sitting down with interesting people to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how they have established their empires. I got Ivan here on the Establishing Your Empire podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. And where are you right now?
Hi, thanks for inviting me. In Prague right now, and I'm calling you from the heart of the Czech Republic.
Fantastic. That's great. So I'm here in Austin, Texas. Why don't you give us a little overview of what Photopea is?
So basically, it's a photo editor which runs in a web browser. And I made it. I made Photopea. I've been developing it for 9 years. And right now, it's quite advanced tool. It's probably competitor to Adobe Photoshop or GIMP or other advanced software.
And then one of the things that I love about Photopea is you can just use it in your browser. You don't have to install anything. If somebody sends you a file and you just need to open it real quick, boom, photopea.com and open it up. But let's go back. So how did you start it? Why, and how did you start this project?
Yeah, it was a year 2012 or 2013, and I was studying my bachelor degree in computer science. Sometimes in my free time, I was creating all kinds of little toys for a web browser. I was making some simple video games in a browser or some experiments. Usually it was involving computer graphics, so all kinds of animations and stuff. And at one point, I had an idea to make a website which can open Photoshop files, PSD files. So that was the original idea, and the idea was that you just open a website, drag and drop your Photoshop file in there, and then you can see what's inside that file and maybe see the list of layers and structure and stuff. So that was the original idea.
And just basically a kind of a read-only, hey, I need to be able to see a Photoshop file, but I want to do it in a browser.
Exactly. Photoshop was the only tool capable of opening PSD files. I wanted to make something what is free and can open Photoshop files.
I remember those days somebody would send you a PSD file, and yeah, if somebody didn't have Photoshop or you weren't on your desktop, you couldn't open it and you had to wait, maybe a whole day until you got there. Tell me a little bit about the games you used to make.
Oh, actually, it was my first games that I made. It was in Flash, Adobe Flash. If you remember, there was a thing called Flash Player. Mm-hmm. It was popular in the year 2000 and later. And actually, that was my first experience with programming. I was making Flash games. And then as a teenager, and then later when I was 20, 22, I was trying to make money by making Flash games for people.
Was that like in college and stuff like that? You were actually making money
Yeah,
making
it was
games?
actually at the high school and then later at the college.
Wow.
Yeah, these were simple games. And then gradually I moved from Adobe Flash to web technologies, JavaScript, and web development.
So that gave you your kind of the foundation of actually making money with your programming skill. How did you continue the Photopea project?
Well, after I made Photopea, it took me maybe 5 hours a week. After 3 months, Photopea was able to open PSD files and render them somehow, show you the structure of layers. So it was just a viewer of PSD files. And actually, I published it online, and I saw that some people were really excited about it. Like they really liked that what they saw. Basically, it motivated me to improve it a bit further, add something more, some little bit little steps of improvement until gradually I realized that I'm making a photo editor.
And then let's say it starts getting more popular. When did you finally decide to put ads on the site to make a little money? And was that did that worry you that people were going to be like upset that you're making money from this project?
I was making games in the past, and I already had ads in my games before that. Many years before Photopea, I had ads inside games, so I had a basic idea how much money is it possible to make from ads. And basically, for the first 4 years of Photopea's existence, the traffic was very low. There only a small amount of people were using it, so it made no sense to put ads inside Photopea because I had more players playing my games than Photopea users.
What point did Photopea start having a lot of views or a lot of users?
Yeah, so actually it's the user base grew slowly. There was never any big jump. So it grew, let's say, each week, each month it grew by 5 to 15%, but it was never more than that. It never grew like 30% in 1 month. It never happened. So the growth was gradual. And after 4 years of existence, I decided to monetize it with ads.
That's interesting. So for 4 years, you basically just did it because you wanted to do it.
Yeah, but it was my hobby because I was still studying back then. So for during these 4 years, my main job was studying the university, and working on Photopea was my spare time activity.
Do you have any other spare time activity that you're working on now?
You mean like programming
Yeah,
and
sure, whatever.
no, I guess I don't have any. I whenever I have any idea about programming something, I always think about it's usually something related to computer graphics, and I want to make it part of Photopea. So usually, what I work on, it becomes part of Photopea eventually.
So take us back when you were graduating university. Did you go and look for jobs? Like what? How was your thought process back then to make this your full time gig? Walk us through those moments.
Yeah. So basically, maybe like half a year before graduation, I was sure that after graduation, I'm gonna go start looking for a job, send my resume everywhere, and that was basic idea. Then I graduated, and I was still working on Photopea like a couple of hours a week. So then I graduated, but I felt like maybe if I invest a couple more some more time into Photopea into making it better, it will be more useful for people. So I usually said to myself, I'm gonna start looking for a job maybe 3 months from now, and then after 3 months, I postponed it again. And basically, I did not make much money. All my money came from my games that I made in the past. So I was able to survive without having a job back then. But and then I set like a couple of more months and a little more time improving Photopea. Then I had ads in Photopea, and at some point I started to realize, wow, I can. It's already making me enough money to survive, and probably soon I'm gonna have even more money than I would make at some job. So then I started to realize that maybe I'm not going to start looking for a job.
Wow, that's fantastic. And what about like the early versions? Was there a point where you said, "I'm proud of this. This is good. This has got so much potential." You made this early version. It was great because it read only files. But at what point was it really where you said, "Okay, this is really exciting. This could be something massive to where it's used 10 million times a month."
I think the break point was when I when I was able to make more money than I would have made at the regular job. Until that, until it's not making any. I saw that yes, it's nice, it can be useful to people, but I was not really sure if that's what I want to do, because I didn't make it didn't make enough money. But then I think when I saw that, wow, there's potential, I think that was the point where I realized, like, oh, maybe I will be able to keep working only on Photopea, and it won't be that bad at all.
And give us an idea how many years into the project was that?
I think it was like maybe 5, 6 years.
Wow. I mean, that's such a journey. So, why don't you give us a little bit? Actually, this would be fun. Some of the stats, like how many times that do users use Photopea a month or year, or whatever cool stats that you would have.
So Photopea is open to 10 million times a month. So 10 million times somebody types photopea.com, they do something inside Photopea and close it. And this happens 10 million times a month. But it's hard to tell if there are same people or unique. It's hard to tell how many people are there actually during a month.
It's amazing.
But I have some stats that during the last year, people spent 20 million hours working inside Photopea.
Wow, 20 million
Yes.
hours.
Yeah, so it's probably more, almost to 2 million hours a month.
What about your server costs? I'm sure a lot of people start to hear those numbers and starts getting worried. Now, I have understanding how it's run, so my guess is that you have very little because it's browser based.
Yes, exactly. So there are no computations on the server. There is no data traffic on the server, because no files are ever sent outside of your computer. So the only purpose of the server is to load the website, load some JavaScript files, HTML file, and that's all. You don't need the server anymore. So I used to pay for my server around $50 a year. And actually, the guy told me that it's like unlimited traffic. They did not measure my traffic, but then later they told me that they have had like multi-server with multiple clients on the same device, and they said that over 95% of traffic were used by Photopea, but it still was not was like it was po- possible to handle it. And right now I upgraded to a more advanced version, which costs $50 a month.
I mean, my podcast
Yeah.
website's $30 a month in my server hosting,
Okay.
and we're not doing the millions and millions of people using it every month or every year. So, what about how was and what I usually ask this question is your approach to marketing, right? How did people find out about Photopea? How did it grow?
So as I said, it was growing very slowly. So it took me 9 years to get to this amount of users.
What about using social networks? So we connected on Reddit, and I've seen your AMAs, and they get so much different traffic. To me, that's part of your marketing strategy, whether it's a strategy or not. But talk to me about using Reddit and how you've used it to maybe not just even grow, but also for your tech support or whatever you've done.
Yeah, so I discovered Reddit like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Before that, I didn't even probably open Reddit in my life at all. So I discovered that it's quite a great social network actually. And maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I started posting in different subreddits about Photopea, like maybe some subreddit about web design or about some free photo editors. Or yeah, I was basically trying to spam everywhere, and many of my posts were deleted because it was like a self promotion. But in many other cases, people were like actually interested in what I've done, and they commented a lot. So that's also one way how I was trying to popularize Photopea. And maybe 3 years ago, I did my first AMA, and actually Photopea was already quite popular back then. And after my first AMA, it was I my traffic from United States, it increased maybe like twice. So like after my AMA on Reddit, the traffic doubled from the US.
That's fantastic. And what about, did you learn anything? You kind of gave us that anyway. Like what advice would you give a, small software company or any company that's wanting to get on a site like Reddit and to do it properly? Any advice there?
It's hard to tell. In my case, I was just trying different things and seeing what works. So I guess I think Reddit, most of users of on Reddit are from United States, so you should post there at time when it's evening in United States, so you don't make a post when everybody's asleep.
Yeah, that 2 a.m.
And
post probably is not going to work very well.
yeah,
And what about new features? How do you come up with new features? How do you prioritize them? How do you say, hey, I think this is where this is going to work, worth working on, that type of thing?
yeah. It's hard to tell. I don't really have any scientific method. It's basically my intuition. I'm trying to guess how much time would it take to create some new feature, and how much useful can it be. And I'm trying to measure to balance it out and choose choose something what's useful. I must say that often I prioritize features which look fun to make to me. So often I end up working on features which probably nobody needs, but it's fun for me to work on them.
And have you ever been sued by Adobe?
No.
And interesting. And no cease and like no letters, no nothing like that.
No, I was in touch with some programmers from Adobe like 2 or 3 years ago, and basically I just wanted to ask something about PSD format, and they helped me, so it was nice.
That's actually very refreshing to hear. Okay, so you got all these users, all these hours. How do you do tech support? Do you have a team? What happens there?
All that time I was trying to avoid any need of tech support. So basically, I wrote a manual for Photopea, which where every feature should be described how to use it. In the past, I used to write long emails. If somebody asked me how can I do this and that, I used to write them like quite a long email. But now I'm able to just to copy paste the link to the manual page or to my some of my tutorials, and so that's how I do it now. I'm trying to write tutorials and describe everything in the manuals. So instead of writing long emails, I can simply send links and people find it. And also I'm trying to move people to social networks like subreddit of Photopea or Twitter, and the people end up helping each other there. So there is less work for me.
What do you see the next 5 years? Are you do you think you're still going to be working on this? Do you think you should, and this is more a question for you. What do you see your future to be?
It's hard to tell, but if I don't change anything, I'll probably be still doing what I'm doing now, I guess.
So we have all these users, and what kind of revenues is Photopea bringing in?
So at the moment, most of my revenue comes from ads. It's about in the last year, it was about $100,000 a month. So it's hard to tell what's going to be in the future.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So it's free, but yet ads are able to bring in a six figures per month income. What recommendations? A lot of our users are these people who like want to start a business, right? A lot of people who listen to this podcast. What advice would you give them of starting something? Whether it's a full business, a software, a project, anywhere you want to take it.
Don't think about too much, but just go and try it out. Maybe it's sometimes a bad idea can be more successful than good idea, because the person who thinks about the good idea, then they are looking for perfection and they never actually start making it. But sometimes if you start with a bad idea, but you work on it and you enjoy it, it will turn out to be it can turn out to be a great product. So basically, I think many people are overthinking their business, especially at the beginning. You don't have to make a revolution, or your tool doesn't have it. There will always be some problems, some bugs. There will always be some people who are unhappy with your product, but it's just part of it. And in my case, it was very useful to that I enjoyed what I was doing, and I could use this fact that I was enjoying it, and spend a lot of time without feeling bored or anything.
And when you start, what would you wish to have that you had known when you started?
Maybe some details about technical side. If I was maybe studying some different areas, I could maybe avoid at the university. I learned during my bachelor's course, I learned like 15 programming languages, but I end up using two of them or three. And yeah, maybe I was trying to be too practical when studying, but at the end, I think it would be better if I had more theoretical education, which could help me with Photopea.
Walk us through a normal day in your life. Like how, do you wake up and check a bunch of tech support? What do you usually do? Like your normal day go?
Oof, yeah, I guess it's very similar to other people who do not work on Photopea. I don't have any specific schedule. Sometimes I have 2 3 events during a day, like video calls, or I have to see a doctor, or meeting with a friend. But the rest of the time, I am free to do anything I want, and I either make on Photopea work on Photopea, or I reply to some emails related to Photopea, or I just check social networks.
And what about venture capital? Anybody approaching you? Any thoughts there to where that you have you thought about taking outside investment money?
Yes, I was approached by some investors and they wanted to invest into Photopea, but for now I have refused it, because I I don't like to feel being under pressure from someone else. I'm not sure if I'm the right kind of person to do business, because for now at the moment I feel more like a developer than a business person, because that's what I do most of the day. I do programming, and it's hard to tell if I would be able to build like a huge company with many employees and stuff.
There's
And so if somebody gave me like $100 million and tell me, "Hey, go build a company," I'm not sure if I would be able to do it. So at the moment, I feel like I can make Photopea grow using my own money that I'm making. So I feel like I don't need any extra money at the moment.
And there's something to be said about an engineer focused business or a product. Well, probably product there, because then everything you're making is just to make the product better, not because it might be more attractive to sell it or to pitch it to somebody. Any other? Do you feel like you'll start another project like this in the future at any time? Like, and it doesn't have to be in just software in general. Is that something else that you want to do?
Yes, yes, I'd love to start maybe other projects, but it's hard to tell what is more important, if whether making Photopea better or starting or leaving Photopea and starting something else. So at the moment I already have users of Photopea, and I can be sure that every feature will be useful for someone. But when you start a new project, nobody knows about it at the beginning, and if you spend 1 or 2 years working on it, it's hard to tell if anybody will be using it.
And
So
has
I
go
feel
ahead.
I feel a bit risky.
And what does success look like for you? Are you already successful in your eyes, or is there something out there that you're ascribing to be or to do?
I'd like. I enjoy moving forward with anything you do. So I'm enjoying when Photopea was getting more popular. There were more users, more traction. So once it slows down, I'll be looking for something else to move forward to grow.
Is there any like memory or story that happened along these, all these years that just really sticks out to you?
Yeah, sometimes I discovered, like, maybe I remember I was asking some YouTuber to review Photopea, and they said they want $10,000 for a review. And then yeah, and then I like later I find a video from some other YouTuber which reviewed Photopea without me even knowing that they are making a review, and it had even more views than it would have if the original YouTuber was made it. So sometimes when I try to ask for a review, people ask for money, but on the other hand, somebody makes free review for free, and it feels really nice. So it happens like maybe once or two times a year, and each time I find something like that, I'm always very excited.
That's great. What about, the Czech Republic? I've actually never been. I've been in a lot of different places. Love to travel the world. Haven't traveled as much lately, but where's some of your favorite places just to go, when you go on on holiday or whatever else?
I'm not I do not travel that much. For example, I've never been to United States, or yeah, I've been in Europe, in Asia. I was in Spain 2 months ago. I spent 2 weeks there, south of Spain. It's very beautiful. I can recommend it. And I was also in Austria this week in summer.
What about like,
This
let's go back to your like high school self. We talked about you in university. What advice would you give your 16-year-old self?
Don't worry, everything's gonna be okay. Yeah, I think as a 16-year-old, I was like, as a teenager, I was like always thinking about everything too much, worrying about everything. I was maybe like a nerd, so I spent a lot of time on a computer. I did not talk too much. Yeah, and I was worrying where my life is going and what's going to happen in 5, 10 years.
I think that's a lot of high schoolers or just that's around that age, and even now sometimes I think I worry about that. What about with programming, when so building something like this, one of the I don't know how to ask this, but basically, let's say somebody want to start this and they're think it's a big project undertaking. Any advice for them just to lay out the project or how to develop something this large?
In my case, it was very helpful not to focus on the whole thing. If I knew at the beginning what I was doing and how much work it would require, I would probably be discouraged by that, because I really don't want to spend 10 years working on the same one thing, and it sounds very scary to like lose part of your life doing something. But actually, in my case, I was only thinking about short-term goals. So I said, "Hey, let's make a thing which can do this and this, and that's all, nothing else." At the beginning, it was like my idea was simple. I want a tool which can do only two or three simple tasks, and I made it. I published it. I saw the response from people, and then I decided what to do next. So yeah, if you think about all the features that you want to include, all the capabilities, and then you realize, oh, that's a lot of things. I'm gonna need like a couple of years to finish it properly. I think for it would such approach would not work for me, because I would be discouraged by such amount of work. So in my case, I always had like small goals. I executed it. I saw the result. I published it. I shared it with others, and that was the way I was doing stuff. My goal was not to have 10 million users, but my goal was to have more users next month than I have this month.
And what kind of growth on your users do you have for 2022? Or do you think it will grow, or have you ever seen a decline? And has ad blockers been a big revenue deterrent?
No, no. From my measuring, I have seen that only 20% of visitors have ad blockers. So you can say that I have 20% smaller revenue, but it's not such problem, I think.
What about like a specific feature that you think that Photopea is better than Photoshop at?
I think editing PDF files,
Oh
it's
yeah.
something you cannot do. Yeah. Actually, if you open for a PDF file in Photoshop, it's displayed as a photograph with pixels, and you cannot change the text, type another text, or you cannot edit it. And Photopea can edit PDF files. So I think that's one of important features which Photopea can offer for free. Actually, I don't know about any other PDF editors that are free. So I think Photopea is the only one, but I'm not sure.
That's amazing. And, in large corporations, most of your just salesperson or just lower level person can't install software on their computer because it's locked down. But a lot of times need to edit a PDF. So that's an amazing feature that I actually haven't used yet on the Photopea. I'm going to be playing with that later today for sure. How do you go about even making something like that? Was there, because it doesn't sound like there's any other open source PDF editor. So is that something where you just create it from scratch?
Yes, sadly, I had to create it from scratch because um, Photopea is written in JavaScript, and there were no good tools for editing PDF in JavaScript. So I had to create everything myself. But it was evolving for several years now. So I'm still fixing bugs related to PDF editing. Like at least once a week, I improve something related to PDF editing. So I think over the last couple of years, the PDF editing matured, and it's actually quite usable at the moment. But of course, in some cases, the PDF ends up looking a bit different than it was. But it's only some rare cases, and most of the time you can usually reproduce what was originally there.
So since it's all like in your browser, how do you protect against somebody just stealing your code and making their own version of it?
I usually try to obfuscate my code. So in JavaScript, you rename variables, or you can modify your code to make it look less readable. and you hope that people will not steal it.
And is the team just you, or are you bringing somebody, a whole team on? How big is the Photopea team?
There is a friend of mine which is cooperating with me, but I would say that I still do like 90% of work.
So that you have, it's your tools used 10 million times a month, and the team is pretty much 90% you. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, yeah, it's same as writing a book, right? You can one person can write a book and then billion people read it.
Yeah. And what about, do you think there are some advantages of, one person kind of working on it as opposed of teams and teams of teams and, organization structure and all that?
I'm not sure. I never worked in any big corporation, so I cannot compare. But I think it's when you work alone, it's definitely easier to, as you are the only person working on it, you don't have to coordinate tasks with someone else and to communicate what exactly each of you are doing and how will you combine it at the end. So and actually it can happen that two of you will be solving the same problem and you don't even know about it. So when you work alone, it's easier in many ways, but on the other hand, you only have 12 hours a day which you are awake and productive.
If you had to start all over again, would you have preferred to have a co-founder, or are you glad it was just you?
Actually, I think I wouldn't mind having a co-founder, but I would like to see that the co-founder is actually useful in some way, like either they are a programmer and they will help me with work, or what exactly would be they doing. And as I said, as Photopea was my hobby and there was no profit for the first 4 years, I think nobody would want to join me knowing that there will be no profit in the first 4 years.
You'd be surprised on some startups here. I'm in here in Austin, Texas. There's a lot of startups that don't have profit for more than 4 years. Um,
Yeah, but they have investors and people willing to invest in them.
and why do you keep updating it? It's making money. It's pretty nice. Why keep on adding features?
Of the people who are using it, many of current users, they still miss some features. There are still many things Photopea cannot do at the moment, and I'm actually trying to add these features because I know there are some people who would want to use them.
And for your own use, like when you actually open up the software and use it, what do you mainly use it for? I mean, are you like photoshopping people's faces onto funny memes? Like what do you actually use Photopea for?
I don't I don't actually use Photopea that much. Sometimes maybe when I need to crop a photo or resize, rotate picture, or maybe draw some image for my tutorial about Photopea. Yes, only simple tasks. I think the most advanced user people who have my users, it's much more probable that my users will find a bug than I would find a bug.
Well, it's nice to have such a big user base and to report the bugs for you. Are you finding that people are using like your own website to do that? Are they reached out to your social media? Like I guess my question really is okay, I'm sure there's always so many bugs in different software. How do you filter through the noise to figure out, okay, this is the bug I should be working on or the new feature or whatever it is? Is it just because it stands out to you, or is it because there's so many people that are asking for it?
Oh, it's usually I usually just read the message, what they're saying. If there's something I do not understand, I ask them to clarify it. And but if I notice that, oh wow, it's really is a bug, then I am trying to fix it as soon as possible, depending on whether it's something what affects many people or just a small portion of people.
Well, this is my last question, and I end every podcast with this question, and it's how would you like to be remembered?
Yeah, maybe as a person who tried to create some great things and who enjoyed it.
That's perfect. Well, Yvonne, it was a huge pleasure to have you on the Establishing Your Empire podcast. Thank you so much for making time and having this chat with me today.
Thank you also for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be with you.
All right, cheers.